Jenna Moreci, a very warm welcome to Robinson College here in Cambridge. We're super pleased to have you here. Super pleased you've agreed to this.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So can we kick off then? We're talking about your latest book, which is Shut Up and Write the Book. Can you tell us why you wrote the book, that book?
It's been a long time coming. You know, I have this YouTube channel, Writing with Jenna Moreci. It's been around for almost a decade now. And people have continuously asked me, you know, can you write a writing craft book? You know, take everything that you've covered on your channel, expand upon it, and put it in a book. And at the time that, you know, I ended up writing Shut Up and Write the Book, my partner, he has a very serious medical condition called CRPS, and he was going through a lot of treatments, and things were kind of crazy in life. And I thought now would be a really good time, if, you know, during my downtime, to focus on something outside of fiction, something that is a little bit more personal. And I decided, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it, you know. So a lot of it was written, you know, at the hospital. A lot of it was written in waiting rooms. And it was just sort of a way for me to take all of what I had taught my audience and all of what I've learned over, you know, the past over 20 years, honing my craft and putting it into a book that I could share with my audience finally, after years of them asking for it.
I mean, it's surprising to hear that, because on the one hand, you're sitting in a hospital, which won't strike many people as the most conducive place for writing.
No, not so much, yeah.
And yet, I mean, I listened to the audio version, and being out in public, when you listen to it, I was caught laughing out loud on more than one occasion, and that never happens. That is not the kind of thing that you would expect, A, from a book about writing, and B, from a book that was written from hospital waiting rooms and so on.
I think for me, it's like a distraction. You know, there's so much, when there's so much negativity going on, it's nice to have sort of a positive distraction, or, you know, have some kind of light. So give yourself an opportunity to laugh. So it helped in that way,
I suppose, but it was also organic. It's not like you've accidentally added jokes or tried to make people laugh as you're going. The whole thing, just the humor is a manifestation of the whole dynamic of the book, or at least that's how it feels.
yes.
And I suppose, I don't know, I've read at least 30 of those kinds of books, and it feels like a lecture delivered in book form and so on. Yours feels like the conversation that the lecturer would have at the pub afterwards.
I love that.
Where you get what's really happening. Do you know what I mean? It's all the substance is there, but it feels as though everyone's just sat back and relaxed.
That's part of the reason that I created my channel in the first place, and also what I wanted to bring to Shut Up and Write the Book. As I mentioned before, writing has been my lifelong passion. I've wanted to be an author since I was 6 years old. And so I've been reading writing craft books for a really long time, and I've been studying storytelling. And a lot of the writing craft books I've read felt more like they were just pontificating. It was just very, you know, it's so serious and so eloquent. And at the end of the day, writing is just, especially writing fiction, it's just playing make-believe. It's play, it's storytelling. It's not really that serious. And I'm the kind of person where when I learn, I want you to get straight to the point. I want you to cut the crap and, you know, just give me the main points. And I tend to believe that if you can't explain something simply, maybe you don't know it well enough. So when I started my writing channel, I wanted to cut the crap and get straight to the point, give straightforward advice, no beating around the bush. And I wanted to deliver it in a way that was accessible to everyone. And, you know, I don't think I'm better than everyone else just because I'm an author. Lots of people are authors, you know, so that was sort of the vibe I wanted to have with my YouTube channel. And it translated over into my book, Shut Up and Write the Book, because you know, I want people to just get the meat and potatoes. You know, I don't think they need all the filler. They don't need the extra fluff, and they don't need to hear me wax poetic about myself. That's not what we're here for. I'm here to give you a step-by-step guide to make the process easier, not to fluff up my own ego.
I guess, I mean, it's I suppose lots of the other channels, I suppose, are trying to do that, but it then feels dry, you know, coming from people who are supposed to be writing about or speaking about how to write well. That whole stuff is often so dry and cracked up, and you think, never in a million years do I want to read anything that you're writing. But you have managed to keep all the substance, but you've changed the form in which this stuff is presented.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone else has done that. I've not come across any other books that have done that.
Thank you. That's really, really sweet. I appreciate it.
I'm not trying to be sycophantic or anything. That was like me trying to sound intelligent. I don't know if anyone else has done it. I've certainly not read anything, and I think I've read most things from the last few years.
Well, I really appreciate it, because that was my goal. You know, I like I've said it already, but I just wanted to cut the crap, you know, just get to the point. And I would rather it feel, like you said, a conversation at the pub. I would rather it feel, you know, not like I'm talking down to someone, or not like they have to sift through everything to try and find the golden nuggets. You know, I want it to feel approachable and accessible. And, you know, a lot of people who read writing craft books are just starting. They're new to the game. And a lot of writing craft books I've read in the past, it feels very overwhelming, and there's a gatekeeper aspect. It, you know, it can make you feel like you don't belong here. And I didn't want it to be that way, you know. And it's not rocket science. You're just writing a story about vampires or about cowboys. You know, it's relax. It's going to be okay.
You mentioned a little bit about your YouTube channel. Can you say a little more about how that started, how you ended up doing that?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief, because it is kind of a journey. But I've wanted to be a writer, you know, like I said, since I was 6 years old. And you know, there was a lot of pressure and whatnot, especially back in the 90s. And in those days, it wasn't quite as accessible to become an author as it is today. So I pursued the realistic path, the safe path. And I have a degree in finance, and I was a stockbroker and an accountant, and all those safe, you know, businessy jobs. And I hated it. I couldn't stand it. I got to a point where I was like, this is going to be my life, you know, and I am living for the weekends, because I can't stand the 9 to 5. So I decided then that I was going to try to write a book on the side and see if I could make it a lucrative part-time side gig. And if it didn't work out, at least I knew I tried and I had an answer. So I started doing that, and I had created a blog to help promote myself as an author. And it was doing well, but it kind of plateaued. And while I was writing this blog, a lot of people would message me and say, have you ever considered starting a YouTube channel? Because your voice in your blog is very funny and approachable, and I think it would translate well to YouTube. I'm an introvert, so I said, absolutely not. There is no way in hell that I'm putting my face on YouTube. It's just not going to happen. Throughout this process, you know, I just continued the blog. I was writing the book, and toward the end of writing the book, my debut, my then boyfriend, now husband, Cliff, suffered a major accident and broke his spine. And I put everything on hold. I quit my job so I could sign on to be his caregiver, help him relearn to walk, all that stuff. And when you have that kind of experience where someone close to you, you know, almost dies, it kind of has you rethinking your life and understanding that your time on this planet is not a guarantee. And that was sort of the point where I thought, you know what, I'm just going to start the YouTube channel, because, you know, I'm done being scared, because writing is what I want to do with my life. So I'm going to start taking chances, basically. And my goal when I started the YouTube channel was that if I just get 100 subscribers, I will feel content. I will feel like I did my duty. And we are now just shy of 300,000 subscribers. And yeah, so long story short, it ended up being a risk worth taking. I started the YouTube channel a few months after after Cliff had relearned to walk. So I was less needed for him. And in my free time, I started making the videos, and like I said, my goal was 100 subscribers. Never in a million years did I think it would take off. It did. And long story short, now I am a full-time author and full-time YouTuber, and I make a lot more doing this than what I made in the safe job in finance.
Yeah.
So
There's a huge amount there to unpack. It's interesting you're talking about being introvert, because our most successful YouTuber who's just graduated from college also described herself as an introvert. And it sparked a big debate in an interview that I did with her, where everyone was saying, you know, how can you be an introvert and want everybody to know? And of course, that's not how it works.
Right. Like introverts just mean that you feel you lose your you lose your energy and battery power by being in social interactions. And so filming YouTube videos is draining for me, but at the same time, it's not as draining as being in a room full of people. At the end of the day, I'm just talking to myself. You know, I'm just talking to a camera. It doesn't feel that way for everyone else, but that's what it is for me. And I'll film like 4 videos in a day, and then after that, I'm totally pooped.
Really?
But yeah, but it's not the same as going to a party or something like that, because there's people there.
I've forgotten the first book, The Saver's Champion. I mean, this opens with somebody who understands what pain. When I was reading about the main character, Tobias,
yeah,
looking after his sister and seeing the pain she's in some ways it was it's not the kind of fiction that I read very often. I suppose Game of Thrones is as near as I would come. And so some of it's kind of stabby, some blood came out.
Just a little bit.
But then you switch to this guy trying to look after his sister who's in immense pain, and it was pretty clear, like that wasn't bullshit. When you're writing that stuff, it's easy to do that badly. I don't know if I should ask. You understand what pain is up close, obviously.
Right. Yeah. My partner, like I said, he suffers from a chronic pain condition called CRPS, chronic regional pain syndrome. It's the most painful condition in medical science. And actually, when I wrote The Savior's Champion, he wasn't yet diagnosed with it. But I knew I wanted Tobias to be fueled by a medical reason. And it's easier to write what you know. So rather than giving her a condition I've never experienced or been, from Tobias's perspective, obviously I don't have CRPS, but I've been in Tobias's position where someone I deeply care about is suffering. So it was just easier, honestly. It was a lazy decision to give her the condition that I was witnessing every day, because at the time that I wrote The Savior's Champion, that's when it again wasn't diagnosed yet, but that's when the CRPS was sprouting up. It was a result of an injury, and Cliff broke his spine, and a few years later developed CRPS as a result of it. So I was witnessing it, and I'm like, okay, so Naomi needs to be sick in some way. What's she going to have? And it just, kind of worked out that way. And I didn't think much of it at the time, but it really resonated with a lot of readers, and they were like, wow, it was a very visceral, powerful moment. And I was like, oh, I guess there's a reason for that. And that's because, I don't usually like to put my life into books, because for me, it's escapism. But it was like one of the few times where I did that. And I guess it paid off because it really resonated with people.
So there are 2 books in the series so far. There is a third on its way.
On the way.
Do you know when that's going to come out?
Well, originally I had planned to release it later this year, but then more medical hiccups came about. So it will definitely be released by 2024. I just don't know when in 2024. But lately the schedule has gotten a lot simpler. And so I'm basically just hauling ass trying to finish this book. This book so far has been the hardest to write in the series because it's the most complex, but it's the one I was most looking forward to. So every time I get to work on it, it's just extremely exciting. For those who are tuning in, the Savior series is a fantasy romance series or dark fantasy romance. So it's like half stabby stab, half, kissing and love and heart flutters. And this book has it's I don't want to spoil, but it expands upon both of those sides in a very intense way. And so I'm really excited for it to come out, basically.
So the first book is from Tobias's perspective.
Mhm.
Second book is from the
Layla's
perspective
perspective.
of, okay.
Layla, yeah.
And the third book, I think you mentioned in your book about writing the fact that you are switching between viewpoints with each chapter.
Yes.
So
Yes. So it's going to be Tobias Layla, Tobias Layla, Tobias Layla. So that has been super fun.
I mean, it was nice with the first two that you're doing. It's the same time frame, just from different perspectives, and of course you see different things. With the new book, then, will the different perspectives cover the same time frames, or will the story be moving on a bit more Game of Thronesy?
Yeah, it's going to be, they're not going to be covering it'll be like, Tobias's perspective in the morning, Layla's perspective the next day, or Tobias's perspective the day after that, Layla's perspective the afternoon of so it's going to be moving forward. And it's all the first two books are companions, which means they both cover the Sovereigns Tournament, but two different perspectives. And the third book is the sequel to both of them. So it starts the day after both of those books end. And it goes on for months and months.
I'm looking forward to that one coming out, actually. I just want to see what's going to happen next. I'm trying desperately not to throw spoilers in here.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of violence in this book. And I say this as I'm ex-military, I box, I teach people to box, and I've got swords up there. I teach people to do that in college now as well. So this is kind of my world, I suppose. And when you read some of the sort of gritty, dark, sort of British Anglo-Saxon, fighty, it just feels, it takes itself so seriously, it doesn't work. And somehow I always find myself viscerally reacting negatively to that. And again with yours, I didn't. And I don't know if that's because of the general writing style or because I mean, you don't look like a boxer.
Well,
how can you do it? How do you write about violence? That's the question.
For me, I can relate to what you're saying, and that was something that I wanted to do differently in my writing. I read a lot of fight scenes where, like you said, it takes itself so seriously, and also it feels more like a play-by-play, where it's like he took his right fist and then he did an uppercut into the left side of his face. It's just very robotic and slow. And so with my fight scenes, my focus is not on giving every single detail, every single maneuver. It's on using visceral, powerful verbs. So I'm not going to say parry or uppercut. I'm going to say things like plow and thrust. There's a joke to be made there. Or pound. I'm the Batman words, the words that they give you an immediate reaction. So I try and use words like that. Also, I feel like, and this isn't the case for all the fight scenes, but just in general, I feel like a lot of fight scene dialogue tends to be so cheesy and almost feels like it's from anime, like I will thwart you, villain. It's not believable, and it doesn't feel like that's what people would really say in a fight. And so You probably noticed there's lots of cussing in the book. And that's because, in my opinion, if I'm going to be, if there's a big wall of fire coming after me, I'm probably going to yell, "Oh shit." I'm not going to yell, "Golly, let's run," and a lot of fight scenes I read, they're not giving the realistic reactions that I would expect, even if you are a trained fighter, that there's going to be some elements of fear, frustration, anger, and I would expect less of that, banter back and forth, and more focusing on trying to stay alive. I basically, I tried to focus on powerful verbs that gets the reader feeling like they're there in the moment. I try to include the pain, because a lot, especially in fantasy, a lot of times they don't talk about the pain, and it's like the person just got stabbed and they're just continuing on like it's nothing, like talk about how that hurts. I'm sure it did. and I try to make, if there's dialogue, I try to make it realistic and reflective, especially from Tobias's point of view. He's not a trained fighter. The only reason that he does so well is because he's got a little bit of magic on his side. I won't reveal anymore. But he's not a fighter. He's an artist. And so I wanted the violent moments to be reflective of someone who, this is not their norm. How are they going to react to things?
Did you do any elements of an art course in the middle of your finance degree?
I actually, for a long time, I was more known for being an artist than a writer. When I was 6 years old, I wanted to be an author and illustrator. So all throughout my adolescence and stuff, I was the girl who draws good. A lot of people expected me to take that career path, but writing kind of eventually overshadowed it, and that ended up being what I want to do. So I know a lot about art, and I have a very deep appreciation for artists. So that's why I made Tobias an artist.
Okay. No, I think, again, that's one of those things that you could sort of hear in the text.
Well, thank you.
The narrators, you chose English. Well, do you choose the narrators?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
For the third book, will you switch narrators between each viewpoint?
That's what I was considering, but I'm like nowhere near that. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah. That's a future Jenna problem. Future Jenna will handle it.
Well, I suppose the question is, why did you choose English narrators?
Honestly, that's just how it sounded in my head.
Okay.
That's how their voices sounded in my head. So that's what I went with. People of plenty of different accents auditioned. I've received hundreds of auditions. So
Really?
it was all a matter of who sounded like Tobias, who sounded like Layla. And then that's who I went with.
Finally, can you talk about what you might be doing next? As in, obviously, you've got to finish the third in the series.
Right. I'm working on the Savior's Army right now. I'm about a third of the way done. But I'm pretty much devoting this entire month to writing every single day. So that'll get filled up pretty quickly. After that, I will probably be releasing another Shut Up and Write the Book style book, another writing craft book. I've been letting my audience choose sort of, or dictate what they want next. And it's kind of been a toss-up between a book devoted to characters and characterization, a book devoted to marketing as a writer, or a book with the step-by-step process of self-publishing. So those are the ones that have been bounced around a bunch. And probably once I'm done with the Savior's Army, I will just go with whichever one is like calling me, whichever one feels the most, timely, and like, okay, I have a lot to say about that right now. And then after that, it'll be on to the fourth book in the Savior series, which is The Savior's War.
Okay, so the Savior series is continuing.
Mm-hmm. It'll be at least 4 books. But I already know a way I already have like a loose thread where I could make it 5, 6, 7. It'll just depend on, I don't like to make firm plans if they're years in the future, because you never know what's going to happen. My life has certainly proven that's the case. You don't know what's going to happen in a few years. So I like to leave it I like to leave it open. So maybe there will be more than 4 books. Maybe it'll end there. I don't know. We'll see. It's up to future Jenna.
One final question then. How long does it take present Jenna to write a book? Because these are enormous volumes.
With The Savior's Champion and Savior's Sister, they each took 2 years. And that's writing, editing, marketing. So it's 2 years from the day I just started the outline to the day it's released. The Savior's Army has taken a lot longer because there were so many medical mishaps in the middle, and, priorities had to shift. But that I wouldn't, like there was a point where I had to take a year off of writing it. So it's hard to say at this point how long it takes. Shut Up and Write the Book, something like that. That's much quicker. That was like 6 months from start to publication. And that's because that's all knowledge that I've, gained from decades of, studying storytelling. It's not something that needs to be, I don't need to create maps for it or research ancient history for it or anything like that. So the nonfiction books are definitely a quicker process than the fiction books, and they're also a lot shorter.
And we'll see more of them soon.
Yes, that's the goal.
Jenna Moreci, thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.